Every time I hear that music, I get excited. I feel the electricity in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching us again live. We're literally global right now. We're being broadcasted to you live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Some of you are downloading us at your favorite podcast place, like maybe iTunes. So Apple just got a little like 8 cents richer. But you're listening to us. This is the What's on Sports podcast. My name is John Tedora. They call me the Sports Trader. Along with me today, helping me guide y'all through this incredibly full week of sports.
Mm-hmm.
My man, the editor-in-chief of What's on Sports, doing the salute. I love that. Michael Schussler, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, John. How are you? You're excited, I see. Ready for Thanksgiving, huh?
I am pumped. I got to be honest. I only eat turkey once a year. And
Really?
It's not like a thing I do, but it's a thing I do.
Not even
I don't deliberately. I don't know. I don't deliberately go out of my way to not eat turkey. But I only eat it once a year. It's very weird. Do you ever just cook a turkey in the middle of the year? I'm like, hey, let's make a turkey.
No, of course not. But don't you? What's your go-to deli sandwich?
My go-to deli sandwich.
Yeah.
Well, so lately I've been getting fancy in the kitchen. I've been making a curry chicken salad with dried cranberries and some walnuts.
That is amazing. Yeah, I've had that. There was this little market in Baltimore called Eddie's, which makes a delicious curry chicken salad. Absolutely fantastic. But so you're saying you don't get a turkey like turkey and provolone cheese, or you don't get like a basic turkey sandwich?
Well, for the people at home that have no idea who we are that are listening for the first time, hi. Michael actually lives just outside of Baltimore.
Yeah.
We do have an office. Our main office is in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm working remotely out of Thailand. So getting some good smoked turkey or even just some good turkey lunch meat is not exactly the easiest thing in the world here.
Good point.
So I don't see it that often. So therefore I don't eat it that often. I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things.
I mean, a turkey is a North American bird, right? You don't have those. I think isn't a peacock is essentially the turkey of the Orient. Is that right?
I do not know if that's true. I do. Sure. I don't want to say it's true or not. I'll tell you how rare turkey is here. I talked to my girlfriend earlier today who's Filipino, and she said to me, so are you getting excited for Thanksgiving? And I was like, not really, and whatever, I don't care. And then she said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. And anytime she starts off with the can I ask you a question thing, it's always something like wildly unique. And this one was, so what does turkey taste like? And I was like, that's a good question. It actually tastes like turkey, but if I had to compare it to something, I would say that it's an oftentimes more flavorful chicken.
Sure.
So, it's chicken-esque. So
yeah,
that was kind of
they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, if you cut up a chicken sandwich, I got some regular chicken and put it in a sandwich, I'd be like, oh, is this chicken or turkey? I'd probably know the difference.
Anyway, for anyone who has already left the show and stopped watching, sorry, we can move on from the turkey. You should get her a turkey sandwich though.
Let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about mayonnaise. Let's go into the kind of mayonnaise.
Actually, mustard.
You know what I had today for dinner?
What'd you have?
I had fish today. Do you know what kind of fish it is?
If you want me to guess.
Stop being so goddamn nosy about my fish. All right. Now we've lost all of our listeners.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got a huge weekend coming up for you guys.
Yes.
What's on Sports is all about sports. If you don't know it, we are connected to one of the largest sports websites in America today. I love the site. It's actually called whatsonsports.com, which makes it pretty easy, which is probably why we named the show What's on Sports. And there's tons of great articles on there, all sorts of great stuff, including some really cool gambling information and some awesome daily fantasy stuff. Now, we're going to touch on a lot of those things in this show as well, but there are some topics that I want to talk to you about really quick. We're gonna go over the Thanksgiving Day previews. We're going to go over the daily fantasy lineups just for Thanksgiving. Michael's got his top 5 teams he's going to be talking about. We're going to do a Week 12 preview. We've picked out 3 of our favorite games we're going to be talking about. But before we do any of that, Michael, there is some breaking news just came across my desk. This is huge. we finally have our first team that's been eliminated from the playoffs, as well as our first team that is guaranteed a spot inside the playoffs. Would you like to take a guess as to who those teams are?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone who follows the NFL, it's probably pretty simple. Jets are obviously the team that has been eliminated, and I would say the Steelers, the only undefeated team left in the league, probably the ones who have already clinched a playoff berth.
I actually love the way you say the Steelers are the only undefeated team left in the league.
Yeah.
It rolls off your tongue.
Yeah.
Michael's a Baltimore Ravens fan, by the way.
Oh yeah.
So it was like painful yet elegant. Like, oh, it was everything you wanted to feel. It was almost Shakespearean. I could just feel it, you know?
I've heard that. Yeah, I get that a lot, actually. So
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I'm just like, you're talking and I'm feeling this.
well, that's more of scary music, which is probably appropriate because no team really wants to go into the playoffs undefeated. And I think you should be a little bit scared that is a possibility. So
I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm actually terrified of that.
yeah, I'm sure.
That is the worst thing in the world. You also don't want to lose as you get closer to the playoffs. So
True.
like you don't want to lose like game 15 and then they go, oh my God, are we really any good? So like if you're going to lose, it's like just lose already. Just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
So you're really at this point, you've kind of stuck yourself. It's like they've swam so far out. If they stop swimming, they're just going to drown. So it's like just keep kicking your feet and see what happens.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't get so tired that you drowned anyway. You know. So
yeah. No, I know.
anyway, let me go on to some topics we have today because I'm excited to get to your daily fantasy lineups.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the part of the show that I'm super excited for. For those of you that have never played daily fantasy before, I just played this weekend, and I've played before. I don't play a lot, but I've been talking to Michael a lot. Michael's inspired me to actually jump into the daily fantasy ring. I'm more of a gambler than I am daily fantasy, and I won almost $1,000 over the weekend. Verified. I can show you the little digital receipt if you want me to. It's not a lot of money, but it was a tremendous amount of money for what I put in. So I think I put in a total of $140 and I won almost $1,000. So that the return on my investment was enormous. So the things I learned on this show from talking to you, I was able to apply and make some money. So hopefully the people that are listening are able to do the same thing. Before we go any further, I just want to tell everybody about our sponsor, which is a great little website called sportstradingsystems.com. And since we're talking about how you can make money from sports, I thought it was a great segue to talk about sports trading systems. Sportstradingsystems.com has a unique system-based approach that teaches you how to trade sports just like you trade stocks. They use all of the same techniques that the best traders in the world do, using gambling lines with back-tested analytical data that creates these amazing systems, a portfolio of them actually, that help you invest money in ways you've never thought of before. This is a market that's not correlated to anything, so no matter what happens in the next few months with the new president or maybe the old president, who knows what's going to happen there. I think we all know, but just in case the other guy doesn't leave, no matter who's in the office, this is a system and a methodology that can help you disconnect some of your investments from traditional markets and put it into a very unique area, which is sports. Now, Michael, we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving. We talked about the food, of course, we got that out of the way, but it's the games that used to make Thanksgiving very special. You sit around, you have an early dinner, late lunch, whatever you want to call it. I don't know about your family, but we used to eat Thanksgiving dinner right around 3 or 4 o'clock. I don't know why it was so early, just the way it was done. And I always felt like it was done almost to be around the games. You want to watch that early game, eat, just this food is you're finished done eating, walk out, the Dallas Cowboys are on. America's team is playing, and everyone's excited to watch the Cowboys. But over the last few years, and it's been a few years, Detroit gets the first game.
Always.
Dallas gets the second game.
Always.
Does anybody care?
No. Nope. I don't think so.
No.
I really don't. Saying that the Cowboys are America's team, that is becoming more dated, I think, every time someone says it. So I don't know why. I'm sure there is a historical reason why the Lions get
just really quick. I think a lot of people actually say America's team sarcastically now.
Sure.
Like there. I don't know if you caught it in my voice, but I said it with not a lot of reverence. I was just like, America, it's America's team. Anyway, go ahead.
No, we're in agreement that it hasn't been exciting for the past couple years, except for maybe the Thursday or the Thanksgiving night game, which of course we'll talk about as the Ravens will play the Steelers. But yeah, I'm really not terribly excited about either of those games. Obviously, I love Thanksgiving, love the food, love seeing my family. It's going to be a little bit different this year, of course, which is probably the case for most people. But still, it's nice to sit down and the first game starts at 12:30, so it's like a Sunday. It's like a weekend that we're getting on Thursday in the middle of the week. And I do love the NFL. I think most people do, but Thanksgiving is a day where maybe a lot of people who aren't football fans or aren't NFL fans are still sitting down watching the games, just because it's on TV and they're watching it with their family. They're getting exposure to the NFL that they normally wouldn't get. And we'll talk about these upcoming games, but really they're just not that exciting. The only thing that's going to make it interesting is some fantasy relevance, playing some daily fantasy season long.
I think you make a really valid point that this is a great opportunity that the NFL misses every year to have brand new eyes, or eyes that, look, at this point, I think everyone's watched a game or been somewhere where a game's on at some point. It's the most popular sport in America, but to have a new set of eyes that doesn't normally watch or hasn't watched in a while, or to get a really good game to get people back into the season if they lost interest somewhere along the way, like you said, daily fantasy. But these games are just absolutely atrocious. Let's start off with the first game of the night, or the first game of the day. I'm sorry, I guess it's a 12:30 game. It's going to be the Detroit Lions, which it always is the Detroit Lions, and the Houston Texans are visiting the Lions. And between these two teams, the Lions are actually the best team record-wise, but they're both. There's not a lot to watch here, in my opinion. What are you looking for in this game?
Well, I don't. That's a great point. Somehow the Lions have a better record than the Texans, who neither are good. But let's remember how bad the Texans started, and then they fired Bill O'Brien, and their offense has at least started to shine a little bit since Bill O'Brien was let go. So the Texans have been more exciting. You ask what I'm looking for in this game. I'm just looking to see Deshaun Watson. I love him. He's one of the most exciting quarterbacks or players in the league, and I don't really think he gets as much attention as guys like Lamar or even Mahomes or Kyler Murray. But he's a very similar, quarterback. He can make a lot of plays happen with his legs, but he also has a great arm and can extend plays and get the ball down the field. Here's an interesting stat about Deshaun Watson. Last week, he's now has the second highest passer rating of all time. Do you want to guess who was ahead of him? All the top three. Let me tell you, the top three are all current players. So this is,
second highest passer rating of all time.
Right. If you look at their career games and you combine the passer rating from each game, Deshaun Watson is now in second place. The guy
he's got to be behind the greatest of all time, which would be Patrick Mahomes.
No, actually, no, not yet.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. For those of you that listened to our last few podcasts, I believe that somebody, I believe it was you, Michael, has been telling me that Patrick Mahomes is head and shoulders above everybody in the league. And if I'm not wrong, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes came in the same draft. So if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have as good of a rating, is he number 3? Is Mahomes 3?
No.
Well, he's not even number 3. This is amazing. You just killed your own argument. I couldn't let it go.
Well, no,
that's awesome.
I think any real football fan understands that passer rating is not the end all be all for judging a quarterback.
No, it's not, right?
No, it's not.
What is?
Super Bowl victories probably, and just
he's got
general win. He got 1 out of 3, and he's got plenty more coming. So that's,
okay. All right. Well, let's get off the Patrick Mahomes train. We'll get back on Patrick Mahomes later. So there's Deshaun Watson's second. I'm going to say of all the quarterbacks that are playing right now, I'd say that that guy from Green Bay's probably got it, right?
Yes, Aaron Rodgers, number 1. Mm-hmm.
Boom!
Yep. And then if you want to take a guess at number 3. Another current
I'm
player.
going to say it's going to be Russell Wilson is number 3.
Sure, yeah, good job.
Wow.
I saw you look that up earlier, so I mean,
I did not look it up.
okay.
I did not look it up. You throwing trivia at me, and I'm connecting all the dots together.
No, fair enough. But anyway, to bring back to my point, I am excited at least to watch Deshaun Watson. And hopefully Matt Stafford plays. I know he's been questionable coming into the game. Hopefully DeAndre Swift, the rookie running back for the Detroit Lions, plays because
I'd like to see him play.
Great matchup against the Texans.
Yeah, I'd like to see him play. Overall, listen. I think the NFL is doing itself a tremendous disservice by continuing to keep the Lions in that first game.
I know. Yeah.
Maybe you can make an argument that the Cowboys are relevant on occasion, and that 4:00 game does them a service because it's a big market, et cetera, and so on. But I think they're killing themselves. Even Detroit fans don't want to watch the Lions on Thanksgiving. They're like, come on, give us a team that actually won't lose. Now, speaking of the 4:00 game, let's move over. It's going to be the Washington football team. I really loathe. By the way, they're thinking about keeping that team, that name.
What?
They made an announcement saying that the Washington football team is actually a name they're considering keeping in the long term.
I think they should. I mean, it's classy. I like it. I like their uniforms. They're a little kind of throwback. I like the Washington football team, WFT. I like it. I don't hate it.
That is awful.
Nah.
That is absolutely awful. I think the Washington football team is a classless name for a classless organization.
Well, that is true.
They can suck on that. Washington 3-7. They're going into play the most loved team in America, the Dallas Cowboys, at 3-7. So this is a team. These teams, I believe, they're both still in some type of competition for the playoffs somehow in that division, because that division is so bad. But what do you think about what's going to happen here?
Yeah, that division is terrible, and it was some stat that I saw or some like crazy thing. It's like if the Washington football team wins tonight, or wins, tomorrow, they'll be in first place. If the Cowboys win, they'll be in first place, and if the Eagles win on Monday night, they'll be in first place. So it's really a collective of terrible teams on the worst division that we've ever seen in the NFC East. It's truly embarrassing for the league. It's awful that one of those teams will make the playoffs and get a home playoff game, even though they'll finish with maybe 5 wins, maybe.
Yep.
So, yeah, that hopefully the NFL changes the format. Speaking of that, we do have some really cool articles on whatsonsports.com that you guys can go check out, where we explore how the NFL should change their format and kind of let in the top teams throughout the conference, very similar to the NBA does, where it's the top 8 teams in the West and the top 8 teams in the East seeded accordingly by record. Doesn't always go by division. But anyway, what am I looking for in this game? I'm looking for Ezekiel Elliott to have another big day. He finally kind of got on track, last week, where he got, I think, 22 carries, over 100 yards and a touchdown. So finally, only 21 carries, but finally starting to see who Ezekiel Elliott is after Dak left. He's really went downhill, just like the entire Cowboys offense. But without Dak, Zeke is their identity, and he needs to be getting the ball 20 plus times a game. And he needs to go out there and be the leader for this team, which they really have none. So I'm looking to see that. I also love my boy Antonio Gibson, the rookie from for Washington. I include him in my DFS article, or my daily fantasy sports article, almost every week because his value is always so good. He had another 2 touchdowns last week. So I'm looking to see, at least those 2 guys, really shine. And then my favorite player in this game is Terry McLaurin, who has been absolutely spectacular, even with
he's been outstanding.
With a terrible, abysmal quarterback situation that he has going on in Washington. He's still able to make plays and make things happen. It's a crazy, or a very cool stat about Terry McLaurin. So he has the most receiving yards through his first 24 career games. He has 1,790 yards, which is second place Jerry Rice with 1757. Third, you have Andre Johnson with
Wow, really?
1669. Yep. Fourth, Calvin Johnson, Megatron at 1530. Fifth, you have Larry Fitzgerald, and then sixth, Terrell Owens. So
Wow,
Terry,
that's
yeah,
a lineup.
that's a hell of a lineup. Terry McLaurin has over 700 more yards than Terrell Owens did in his first 24 career games. So I really think that especially like I said, with the quarterbacks and just the offense that Terry McLaurin has had to deal with, God, that says some absolutely promising things about his young career. And I mean, he's on an absolutely historical pace. So love Terry McLaurin.
Well, listen, coming out of Ohio State, he was one of my favorite guys coming out of that draft, just because of his outright just blazing speed. His route running was fantastic, and he got a bad knock coming out of college, in my personal opinion. I thought he should have got much higher. He should have been a top 15 guy. Wasn't. But Washington picked up a heck of a player there. Supposed to be a heck of a kid too. I would have thought that he and his college quarterback would have had a better connection.
Yep.
But that obviously did not work out.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to what this game is. And to me, when you look at this, that division itself has turned into kind of a dogfight. You got 3 teams at 3-7, and one team I think at 4-6-1. If is that right? Philadelphia has one more win, I think. I don't know. Let me look at
I thought they were all with 3 wins, but let me see.
You're right. Philly's 3-6-1.
Okay.
So they're a half a game up. This is a dogfight, but it's like a dogfight filled with all street dogs. There's zero pedigree here, and one of these guys somehow is going to make their way to the playoffs. So every week now we've been talking about different games, and we're saying, well, the playoffs are starting right now for these teams. For these teams, I mean, I don't know what they were doing for the rest of the season. The playoffs start right now with these guys. Again, this is another game. Sorry to the NFL. I'm not super looking forward to watching this game either, but hopefully it'll be a better game than the first game, I think.
Before we move on to the Ravens Steelers, just one last thing about Terry McLaurin.
Sure.
You talked about how he went too late in the draft. Just before we move on, many people at home might not have heard of Terry McLaurin, or if they have, it's just in passing when they're talking about fantasy. But like we just mentioned how excellent he's been. Here's a list of players that were drafted before Terry McLaurin: Marquise Brown, N'Keal Harry,
Loser.
Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown. Okay. We're right. Mecole Hardman. No. JJ Arcega-Whiteside. No. Paris Campbell. No. Andy Isabella. No. DK Metcalf. Okay. Deontay Johnson. Okay. Jalen Hurd. No. So
wow.
Yeah, I listed those names pretty quick, but really there's only 2 that stand out, and that's going to be AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, who even Deontay Johnson, you could argue could have gone, right around the same time as Terry McLaurin. But for him to go in the 3rd round with the 76 overall pick and have those, 8 guys go in front of him.
He just kept falling in that draft. And honestly, a lot of people had him ranked higher than his teammate, who ended up going to the Colts, I believe, in the 2nd round. And just because he had a faster 40 time. So it was a very, very bizarre draft last year. The Washington Redskins have actually had, in my opinion, a few good drafts. That's not a terrible team. And I said before, as a Steeler fan, I believe that's the most dangerous game in their lineup coming up. I think the Washington Redskins, especially now, if they're in that fight or flight mode, and they have nothing to lose, and they're playing with a quarterback who's got nothing to lose. He's already made it back. He's already comeback player of the year just for existing. I think that's a team that could be dangerous moving forward. And speaking of teams that could be dangerous moving forward, we are going to talk about this game. This game may or may not, just for everybody out there who's been following, Ravens versus Steelers. Every year, these guys, we're blessed with the fact that we get to watch these 2 teams play each other twice a year, because normally when they have all of their components, these are knockdown, drag-out games. And even last year, the first game that Pittsburgh and Baltimore played was amazing, even without Ben Roethlisberger. Mm-hmm. They somehow always, both teams, no matter what's going on, rise to the occasion and give us these classic games. And the first game this year, to me, was no different. Now, you weren't happy as a Ravens fan because they lost, but if you're looking at it as a football fan from the outside, you have to admit that was a really good game. Like that was a chess battle of figuring out what are they doing. Oh, they're going to do this. We're going to do this. It was really good for football purists. Like that was just an amazing game to watch. Now, like I said, you didn't come out on the right side of it, but
No.
we're blessed with the fact that we get to see it again, maybe on Thursday night. Now, let me just talk about that real quick. I believe the Ravens have at least 2 players that have COVID right now.
5 actually.
Are 5 on the list or 5 have COVID?
5 have tested positive for COVID-19.
Okay, 5 have tested positive. Okay.
Tested positive, which means that they are out for tomorrow night. There's no chance that, because you have to at least, I think, have 5 consecutive negative tests or whatever in 5 days. Obviously, there's just the time is not there for them to play.
Yeah.
They will miss that. That's going to be J.K. Dobbins. It's going to be Mark Ingram. I think Ron McPhee. So a couple big names there that are not going to be playing and are also in jeopardy of missing next week because the Ravens play again on Thursday night, a week from tomorrow. So, that's disappointing to see, but that's nothing different than many other teams have had to deal with this year. So that's just kind of what we're dealing with in 2020.
Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, that's a very odd schedule that the Ravens play Thursday and turn around and play on another Thursday. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I understand it's a special Thanksgiving night, but basically it's just a Thursday night game. So that's a little bit of an odd thing for me. The other thing is I think a lot's being made out of the fact that you guys are going to be down your best 2 halfbacks, but I'm a fan of Gus Edwards.
Me too.
I think he's a good running back. I thought he was good before you brought Big Truss in. I think that he's drafting DK JJK was a little weird to me. I thought, well, you guys already loaded in the backfield, but I guess you can never have too much talent in the one area that you're really trying to focus on. So I don't think you're in as bad of a situation as everybody is making out to be. I will say that one more injury or running the ball a little too much, and you're going to wear him out. I don't even know who's behind Edwards.
That would be Justice Hill.
Oh, and you drafted him actually 3rd round last year, I believe, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Oklahoma State.
Yep. So there's a lot of talented, football players in that backfield. You mentioned J.K. Dobbins, though. His game is very different than Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins is an excellent receiving back, and he's also a quick lateral. Right. Gus Edwards is a, no nonsense. Put your head down. Give me the ball. Cover it with 2 hands. Head down. Boom. Hit the hole.
Yeah. Listen.
4 yards carry.
Obviously, Dobbins and even Big Trust to some level are more dynamic players.
Yeah,
like they're going to give you those big break off ripping runs. But I think you can give Gus Edwards that dive 40 times a game, and he'll get you 150 if you give him the ball enough.
Sure. He had 16 for 87 and a touchdown last time the Ravens played. Dobbins had 15 for 113 yards. And obviously, this is going to be all Gus Edwards and Lamar Jackson, I think, carrying the ball. Like I said, last time they played, Gus Edwards had 16 rushes. Lamar Jackson had 16 attempts also. So they're going to have to do that because they can't rely on Mark Ingram, as you mentioned, or J.K. Dobbins. But this is going to be another classic matchup. You hate to see the Ravens not coming out in full force because the Steelers are already, the better team. So you want to see the best product go out there. It's a shame that they won't be out there, but still, this is not going to be an easy win for the Steelers whatsoever. It's the Ravens. I mean, it's a divisional matchup. It's one of the best rivalries in sports. And if you look at week 7, the last time that they played, the Ravens destroyed in time of possession. They had over 10 more minutes of the ball. They were 8 out of 15 on 3rd down. Steelers were only 3 out of 9. They had 29 more plays run, and the Steelers punted 6 times. The Ravens only punted 3 times. One of the biggest.
Well, listen, just to be fair, you don't have to punt as much when you turn the ball over 4 times. So
fair.
I mean,
also,
comparing punts is really not super relevant when you look at it from that standpoint. Let me just say that.
We can compare penalties. The Steelers had 3 penalties for a total of 30 yards. The Ravens had 9 for a total of 110 yards.
And one of those penalties was so unbelievably bogus that it ended up turning into a touchdown for you guys. On 3rd down, Lamar Jackson actually gets pushed out of bounds, like gently, like the heart of a lion, little bitch. Like, oh, excuse me, push you out of bounds. You're a quarterback, and they got called for roughing the passer on that play. And that kept the drive alive where you actually scored 7 points. So you can look at the volume of the penalties, or you can look at what the penalties were. And some of those penalties, especially I think there were 2 on Jackson, or 2 hitting Jackson. Both of them were just like, look, he's a running quarterback. You have to be allowed to tackle the guy. You can't say you can't tackle the quarterback. I understand in the pocket.
You can't tackle him out of bounds. Like, you can't tackle him out of bounds. I don't know what
he wasn't tackled out of bounds.
Yeah,
he wasn't. You're laughing because you know exactly what you're smirking because you actually remember the play. Then you probably thought to yourself, "Oh, we got away with one there. We got away with one for sure." But let's not get into these. Let's not get into this partisan bickering. Okay, where you and I are on the same side here. We both love football. What do you think's going to happen with this game? Take off your homer hat for just 1 second. Pittsburgh plays against Baltimore. Take off your excuse machine hat too. Don't tell me that people are missing, because in this last game, the week 7, the Ravens lost 2 offensive linemen in the middle of the game. Pittsburgh lost 2 defensive linemen in the middle of the game. Neither team was able to play with their full complement of players. Pittsburgh had lost their star inside linebacker the week before. So there are things that both teams are always missing going into a game.
Sure.
What do you think about what's going to happen Thursday night? Wrap it up in 30 seconds or less.
I think it's going to be
you'll be wrong no matter what you say.
It's going to be a tough, hard-nosed football game. I think the Steelers will probably end up winning, but I really think the Ravens will give them a good fight. Yeah, most likely. But it's going to be a hell of a game, and I'm just excited to enjoy it. I see the headline down there, as everyone who's watching at home. If you're just listening, you can't see it, but if you're watching, John brought up this quote from Mark Andrews where he says, "People are counting us out, and that's fine." Mark Andrews being the tight end, number 1 receiving option for the Ravens. I think that's a fair statement. People are counting us out, and that's fine. That is fine, because the Ravens like being counted out. The Ravens like being underdogs. They don't like being the favorites. They were the underdog in the first Super Bowl in 2000, even though they were 12-4 and had a first round bye. They were still the underdogs coming into that game against the Giants. And let's remember, in 2012, Joe Flacco had that historic run that no one saw coming, 9 touchdowns, 0 picks in those, I think, 4 games, because Ravens finished 10-6. And although we did win the division, the AFC North, we still had to play a wild card game. And, Ray Lewis was a huge supporter of being the underdog, and that brought a lot of fire and passion and a lot of motivation to that squad. And I think that this squad feels a similar way. We don't have that fire anymore that we did with Ray, but keep counting us out. That's what Mark Andrews is saying, and I like that sentiment.
All right, don't forget Lamar Jackson has the heart of a lion.
He does.
All right. Let's talk about something else. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but every Thanksgiving, there is a day of daily fantasy with a very small group of teams. Now, we just talked about the 3 games. There's only going to be 3 games, so it's basically only 6 teams. But there will be daily fantasy available on all your favorite daily fantasy platforms. And today, Michael's going to fire up for us his picks for those daily fantasy games. And we're super, super excited. And after that, he's going to tell us his top 5 NFL picks. But now I just want to remind everybody one more time, these picks last week, well, no, that's not true. His advice last week helped me win close to $1,000 in daily fantasy. So I'm still telling you guys, listen to what he's got to say, and let's turn the floor over to Michael Schuessler as we talk about Thanksgiving's daily fantasy lineups.
Well, thank you, John. And the reason that you were able to make so much money is because you did use my price to profit system, and that algorithm, which essentially finds the best value in daily fantasy sports, DraftKings or FanDuel. And what I do is I look for players who are undervalued as far as the system's concerned. That allows you to, decrease your budget or, spend less on certain players who are likely to perform. Maybe they're not going to be top 10 plays, but if they'll be top 20 and they're bottom 30 priced, you can do the math and see how that works out. Thanksgiving, you mentioned every year there's 3 games on Thanksgiving. So that means that there's a full Thanksgiving slate, the 12:30 game, the 4:30 game, and the 8:30 game. where you can only use those 3 games, so those 6 teams, to build your lineup. So it's different than a normal Sunday or weekend slate, they call it, where all the games are all the games are available to you. So for Thursday, it's actually it's much more difficult to build a convincing lineup because you're limited to those 6 teams. Now, with that being the case, of course, it's always important to find value, but there's only 6 quarterbacks to choose from. So it's actually less important in a slate like this to find value than it is to assess who is going to be the top performer. And obviously that's what you always want to do. This guy's going to score the most points, so I'm going to play him. So for my lineup, which I will discuss here, I have Deshaun Watson as my quarterback. Now, he's the most expensive coming into this. You got Deshaun Watson at 7,400, Lamar at 6,800, Big Ben Roethlisberger at 6,600. Now, all of those are fair plays. Obviously, Ben is the cheapest of those 3, but the Steelers and the Ravens, like I said, that's going to be a knockdown, drag them out defensive matchup. Those 2 always play each other hard. I think it's going to be tough for Lamar and Big Ben to really get a lot going statistically here. Whereas Deshaun Watson and the Texans play the Detroit Lions. Remember, Detroit Lions are bad. Deshaun Watson has the 2nd best passer rating of all time. He also has 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the year. Last week, he had 344 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and he had 34.4 fantasy points. What I'm saying here is that I think it's clear and easy that Deshaun Watson is the top performing quarterback in any of those 3 games. So I'm comfortable spending up for him. And if I'm spending up for Deshaun Watson, that means that we're able to find value elsewhere. Where's that? Gus Edwards, we talked about earlier. Gus Edwards is only $4,000, and that's quite cheap for a lead running back. Now, obviously, these prices are set. They're preset, so they are not taking into account that J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram are going to be out. Therefore, got to take advantage of Gus Edwards getting 15 to 20 carries. I know it's a tough defense on the Steelers, but the Ravens want to run the ball. Gus Edwards is a hard-nosed runner. He gets into the end zone at least once. Love Gus Edwards for just $4,000. I mentioned Antonio Gibson earlier. I love this guy is a workhorse running back for the Washington football team. They love to give him the ball 20 times a game, and more often than not, he makes stuff happen. Along with Antonio Gibson, another guy we mentioned earlier, Terry McLaurin. He's the most expensive wide receiver coming into Thursday at $7,000. But
now remember again, let me just remind everybody, this is only for Thursday. So
right.
These are only for the players Thursday. So McLaurin is the most expensive wide receiver for Thursday only. Just
correct. Now it's when my price to profit algorithm, what that wants to do is it wants to 3 times the player's value when you convert that to fantasy points. So if Terry McLaurin is $7,000, I'm expecting Terry McLaurin to at least get 21 fantasy points and multiply that by 3.
Wow.
Against the Cowboys, who have been historically bad on defense. I know it's Alex Smith throwing it to him, but those guys, Alex Smith and Terry McLaurin, have a very real connection. I think that this is an absolute no-brainer. The last time that the Washington football team played the Cowboys in Week 7, Terry McLaurin had 11 targets, 7 receptions for 90 yards, and a touchdown. So he had 22 fantasy points. Like I said, I think 22 is a very reasonable number for him to get to this week. Love Terry McLaurin at that price. I also love any one of those 3 Steeler wide receivers. So you got Deontay Johnson, you have Chase Claypool, and you have Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, for the past, I think 4 or 5 weeks, and John, we've talked about this, I've been going with Deontay Johnson because he's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 cheaper than his teammates. Well, I guess DraftKings is starting to realize that, what I've been saying. Right. What I've been saying since the beginning of the year is that when Deontay Johnson is healthy, he's Big Ben's favorite target. He had 16 targets last week, twice as many as Chase Claypool with 8. Juju only had 5. But Deontay Johnson is the most expensive Steelers wide receiver for Thursday. So I'm going to pivot off of him. and I'm going to actually take Chase Claypool, who's only 6,100. That means that Chase Claypool needs to score 13 fantasy points. Chase Claypool is the only wide receiver. I think he's the only skill position player to have 10 touchdowns in his first 10 games. The only player ever to finish with more touchdowns than games played is who, John? Do you want to take a guess? That's a good trivia question.
He finished a year?
No.
Or finish his
career with more touchdowns than games played. This is a tough one.
Finish his career with more touchdowns than games played.
Mm-hmm. Chase Claypool is on a similar.
All right. Why don't you finish talking and
Okay,
let me think about it, and I'll have the answer when you're done. And I won't use Google, I swear.
Yeah, don't use Google. Anyway, Chase Claypool hasn't had under 13 fantasy points since week 7, and he's only done it 3 times throughout the year. It had less than 13. I know the Ravens are a tough defense, but Chase Claypool, that the Steelers get Claypool the ball in. At the goal line, they give him like 4 to 5 rushes a game, and he's still going to get targeted. So if Marlon Humphreys tries to shut down Deontay Johnson, who's been going off, I think it opens up a lot for Chase Claypool. So I love Claypool at that price.
Yeah, listen, he's definitely in those moments. Mm-hmm. He's somebody Ben looks at. I can tell you as a Steeler fan, in those moments. third and short, something like that. You're going to see Juju over the middle. 3rd and 7 or more. He's looking at Claypool, especially in those really key moments. And that comes down to the fact that while Deontay Johnson is probably more explosive of a receiver, mm-hmm. he has those gaps where he'll drop a ball.
Sure.
And if it hits Claypool's hands, he pretty much catches it.
Also, Claypool just has the size that he is bigger and tougher and stronger than any defensive player on the other side. So he's going to come down with those 50-50 balls. Love Chase Claypool. My third wide receiver that I absolutely love is Marvin Jones. And simply because there's no Kenny Galladay. And I love Kenny Galladay too. Babytron, his nickname, which is a reference to Megatron, obviously. Calvin Johnson, who used to play for the Lions. Now we have Marvin Jones. I think that a lot of people, it's not that they forget that 12:30 game is on, but when they're building their lineups, they're going to kind of like shy away from that 12:30 game. I mean, it's happening around lunchtime. It's the Lions. Like, no one's really excited about that game. And I think that is a great opportunity for everyone listening at home, for myself, to sneakily get Marvin Jones in there while there's no Kenny Galladay. Sneakily. Yeah, it's got to be sneaky. Let's look at Marvin Jones' last 5 games. Okay, so last week he only had 4 for 51, which is 9.4 fantasy points. So 4 receptions for 51 yards. The week before that, against the Washington football team, he had 8 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown, finished with 23 fantasy points. Week 9, he had another touchdown, finished with 13. Week 8, he had 2 touchdowns. And week 7, he had 5 receptions for 80 yards. Now, those aren't the sexiest numbers, but he's only 5,500, which means he only needs to score 15 fantasy points.
Right.
And I think that is very reasonable to expect from a Lions defense or a Lions team that doesn't have a very, like, the Texans are a very friendly matchup, put it that way.
Yeah. The Texans defense is pretty bad.
Yeah, Texans defense is very bad. So I love
their offense has kept them in a few games, but their defense has definitely not done them any favors.
Right, and because of that, I also love DeAndre Swift, who's a little bit expensive at 6,500. Now, he's still in concussion protocol, but he did practice in a limited fashion on Tuesday. So we'll have to see what his practice report is today. I imagine they'll be doing walkthroughs, so it probably won't be a full practice. But he'll have to get confirmation from an independent neurological doctor who can determine if he's able to suit up on Thursday. If he does suit up, absolutely love DeAndre Swift. If not, you can easily pivot to Ezekiel Elliott, who's only $300 more. That leaves us with defense. Defense is tough. There's only 16. There's only 6 defenses to choose from here. What I do, though, is I really find it hard to spend more than $4,000 on a defense. Steelers, 4,200. Washington football team 3,700. I'm going to go with the Ravens D, and maybe I'm being a homer, but they're only 3,100. And let's remember, this is a top 5 defense when they're healthy. And I know they're going to be missing some guys due to COVID, but they're also just excellent at getting turnovers, and our special teams is pretty good too. So I wouldn't be surprised if Devin Duvernay, returns a punt for a touchdown or something. I'd like to see James Conner get some fumbles. We'll see. Big Ben doesn't throw a lot of picks, so that, maybe that's asking for a lot, but I got to go with the Ravens just because they're affordable at 3,100, and there's just no way that I can confidently play the Lions defense or the Texans defense or the Cowboys defense. So I really limited myself to either Ravens, Washington football team, or Steelers. I just went with the cheapest one, which allows me to spend up for the rest of my lineup.
His name is Michael Schuessler, and he is the editor-in-chief over at What's on Sports. That's what'sonsports.com, one of the leading websites in the on the interweb for cool sports news. No politics over there, by the way, guys. For those of you that are looking for those argumentative left versus right, BLM type of conversations, they don't get into any of that stuff. All those things are great on different platforms. You're welcome to your views and your opinions. They just stay away from it. Their motto over at What's on Sports is for the love of the game. They just talk about football. There's great articles last week for UFC that I read. There's some fantastic articles this week on the Mike Tyson fight that's coming up. And of course, basketball and things like that. So go over to What's on Sports and check him out. Michael's been telling us about his daily fantasy for Thanksgiving. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit because Michael likes to put together a top 5 list every week, and talk about his favorite teams in the NFL. Now, this isn't AFC, then NFC. It's just all the teams put together. So, Michael, you've got 5 teams that made your top list this week, which means that 27 teams didn't make it. Let's start with number 5. Who's number 5 on your list?
So this isn't necessarily in order. I mean, I guess it is, but at least 3, 4, and 5 could probably be interchangeable. But at number 5, I have the New Orleans Saints at 8-2. The reason that they're not higher, even though they have, I think, the best record in the NFC, is because we don't know what's happening with Drew Brees. Yes, Taysom Hill looked serviceable and was able to win the game last week for them, but I'm still not convinced that he is an actual franchise quarterback that can, come behind and win games where they're trailing. And that's really but perhaps they could throw in Jameis Winston if they're losing, but then, you have Jameis throwing 30 interceptions last year. There's still some question marks for their quarterback situation. Their defense has been playing a lot better as of late. Michael Thomas finally returning to form. And then obviously Alvin Kamara, essentially impossible to stop for an opposing defense. At number 4, he does it all. At number 4, I have the Tennessee Titans, who are 7-3, the first in their division. Yeah. The Titans impressed me a lot last week when they beat the Ravens. I mean, I didn't think that the Ravens would let that happen again. I mean, it was the same thing that happened in the January of 2020 in that AFC playoff game where Derrick Henry rushed for 30 times, had 190 plus yards and a touchdown. Same thing happened again. Derrick Henry got over 25 carries. He didn't quite have as many yards, but he had over 100, and just that game-winning touchdown. It's just demoralizing to see the Ravens not be able to stop that. And I don't think anyone can stop that. I also brought up A.J. Brown, who I absolutely love, and he's maybe the strongest receiver in the game. I know we talk about DK Metcalf being a beast. Well, A.J. Brown's right there with him. Marlon Humphrey's trying to punch that ball out at the as he's carrying 7 Ravens defenders into the end zone.
A.J. Brown basically saying, ain't going to happen, ain't going to happen.
So, I think and Mike Vrabel's a great coach. I don't think he gets enough credit for how smart he is and all the nuances that he picked up from Bill Belichick when he played for him for years. So, I think the Titans, I got them at number 4. At number 3, I got my boy Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who are sitting at 7-3.
Wow.
They're my favorite team in the NFC. I can really see them going to the Super Bowl because, like I talked about earlier in the year,
just lost this weekend too.
Yeah, but everyone was counting Aaron. I mean, that's going to happen unless you're the Steelers. But everyone's counting Aaron Rodgers out. Everyone's talking about Tom Brady. They're talking about Drew Brees, who are going back and forth with the most touchdown passes ever, blah, blah, blah. Aaron Rodgers is like, hey, I'm still maybe the best quarterback in the game, aside from Patrick Mahomes. So don't forget about me. I can go out and I throw bombs too. I come back and do game-winning drives, and I have way less to work with than Tom Brady or Drew Brees. I mean, yes, he has Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams, who both fantastic, but it's been widely known that Mike McCarthy, when he was the coach for the Green Bay Packers, did not give Aaron Rodgers the help that he needed. Matt LaFleur seems to have kind of lit a fire under his ass with drafting Jordan Love in the first round, giving Aaron Rodgers, his full motivation to get out there, prove to us who you are. Aaron Rodgers has done so. I think they continue to roll into the playoffs. At number 2, I have your Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-0. I mean, what more can you say? They're undefeated. They have a top 3 defense and, a top 5 offense. There's really not much else to say, especially when they play tough opponents. They bring their A game. Oftentimes they will play down to their opponent, but we saw the opposite happen last week in Jacksonville, where they just came out, put the pedal to the metal, and stomped them. We talk about, can the Steelers go 16-0? I think it's very possible. There's a couple of trap games in there. I think tomorrow will be the toughest game that they have left on the schedule. So, if they pull that game out, I don't think there's any stopping the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then at number 1, I don't think this is very surprising. Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champions, best player in the league, the best receiver in the league in Travis Kelce, not even Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the fastest receiver in the league. Travis Kelce is the best pass catcher in the league. And you have the best thrower in the league. It's kind of unfair. Also, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger leading that defense. I don't see any stopping them. I don't care if you're the Steelers. I don't even care if you're the Packers. I think it will be Chiefs-Packers in the Super Bowl. I don't see the Chiefs losing another game this year. And I think Patrick Mahomes wins the MVP again.
All right. Well, let me just interject here. I love the effort and the time you put into this. You surprised me with some teams. You surprised me by having the Titans on the list at all. I like your argument to keep them there. You really surprised me by the Saints being lower than the Packers. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, you watch the Saints the last few weeks just absolutely dismantle people. I mean, it has been highly impressive. Tampa Bay is still trying to get over what they did to them, and then to come back last week and do it again with 8 or 9 sacks. I mean, these guys are just all over the ball, and they're a complete team. And I think that's what some of the problems with some of the teams that you have here. And I think it's a huge problem with the infatuation that the media, the national media, and people like yourself have with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's this infatuation over the fact that, yes, Kansas City's loaded on the offensive side of the ball. But you made it a unique argument earlier that I think goes towards why Pittsburgh should be in a higher position than Kansas City, and maybe even New Orleans should be in a higher position than Kansas City. Pittsburgh has the number 3 defense in the league, the number 4 offense. Kansas City, where is their defense? The Raiders just lit them up again. They've scored 70 points on them in 2 games now. So Kansas City has a lot of trouble actually stopping somebody. Now, your argument could be, hey, it happened last year too, and towards the end of the year, they buckled down and were able to become a decent enough defense to win a Super Bowl. And that's an argument. But I would say at this moment, right now, we're talking about complete teams. So to me, it's Saints, Pittsburgh, Saints, somewhere in there. And then you're looking at Kansas City. You're looking at teams with flaws. You're looking at Kansas City, you're looking at the Packers, and you're looking at the Titans, all of whom have tremendous flaws on the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion. The other thing I say about the Chiefs is, and I mean this with a tremendous amount of respect for how talented they are on the offensive side of the football. If you go into Kansas City and you smack them in the mouth, or if they come into your place and you smack them in the mouth and you play a rough style of defense, I do not think that team is the kind of team that's going to bounce back. Patrick Mahomes is a protected species right now. Like he's not allowed to be hunted, and he has not been hunted. They've not put enough pressure on him. But you put him in a position where somebody can get after him with a 4-man rush, whether it's a New Orleans Saints or even a Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think you're going to see a different Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has been very lucky and blessed with the fact that he's not had to face that type of rush. So I love what you did. I would move some teams around, and I would downgrade the Chiefs because I think that everybody has graded them just a little bit too high, in my opinion, all year long. It's just my opinion.
Well, that's fair, but we both know the most important position in football is the quarterback, and
Sure.
That's why I don't believe that the Saints should be that high because, you need to be able to come back from a deficit. I don't believe Taysom Hill has that skill set. Drew Brees, if he's healthy enough, he could certainly do it. But there's nobody like Patrick Mahomes.
I don't think you have to come back from a lot of deficits when you're holding people to 9 points, when you're holding Tampa to 3 points. So, when your defense is playing that well, we're in a new age of football where no one gives any credit to the defense. The teams that are the best teams right now are the teams that are complete teams. So if you look at and I'll be honest, Pittsburgh has held the last 2 teams to very few points, but they played high school teams. Yeah. The Saints are playing real teams and holding, like, those are real offenses. Matt Ryan and the boys are a real offense. Tom Brady and that crew are a real offense. Mm-hmm. And the last 2 weeks, they held those 2 teams, I believe, to 12 points total between both teams. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely, positively impressive, in my opinion, in today's NFL, where we're having 45 point shootouts here. Like, this is just some crazy NFL football right now. And the Saints are just shutting people down. And they did it last week without Marcus Lattimore, who's a top 5 cornerback in this league. So
sure,
it's impressive. It's highly impressive to me.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens when the Chiefs play the Saints in New Orleans on December 20th. That'll be a Week 15 matchup. I think that'll be very telling of, what the Chiefs can do against a real defense.
Absolutely. I believe the Chiefs actually have a pretty tough schedule coming up here. And believe it or not, I think the Steelers have a tougher schedule coming up here too, because they've got to play the Colts, they've got to play Buffalo, they're going to play Cleveland again, they're going to play Baltimore. So the next few games are going to tell us a lot about both teams. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the weekend, though. I had such a good time watching the Colts-Packer game. And to be totally honest with you, these 2 teams played each other 2 weeks ago. The Titans are going into Indianapolis to take on the Colts. I believe they were 6-3, or were they 5-3 2 weeks ago? They had the same record 2 weeks ago, both. And somehow both went in. The Colts came out with a better record. It was 3 weeks ago. Sorry, 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. This week they come in again. Now the Titans are coming into the Colts. They both have the same record. The Colts have the lead, though, because they played each other head up, and the Colts have won. This is going to tell a story for us of who's going to win that division. Titans against the Colts. Both teams are 7-3. What are you thinking about this game?
Yeah, I think that the Titans have something. They really have something to prove here. I mean, I put them at 4 on the list. Last week 7 that we talked about, or week 8, 2 weeks ago, maybe it was week 9 even, the Colts went into Tennessee and they kind of stomped them. I mean, they had over 100 more passing yards. They had 150 more rushing yards, 150 more passing yards, and over 100 more total yards. They, it really came down to Phillip Rivers outplaying Ryan Tannehill. Phillip Rivers had over 300 yards and a touchdown. Tannehill had 147. Derrick Henry, did his thing. He had 19 carries for 103 yards. I think the Titans need to rely on Henry a lot more. They're going to have to go into Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, and they're going to have to
– tough defense to run on.
Tough defense to run on, but tough dude to tackle. I mean, this is Derrick Henry. Ravens are a tough defense to run on too. Doesn't stop Derrick Henry. I don't think there's anything that can stop Derrick Henry. I don't care if it's Darius Leonard, who I also love. So I foresee it being a Derrick Henry game, and I'm sure AJ Brown gets his. And on the Colts, I like Nyheim Hines. I think he will be in my weekend fantasy column that'll be up on the site later today at whatsonsports.com. Week 12 DFS fantasy, daily fantasy sports for this upcoming weekend, which excludes the Thanksgiving games. Love Nyheim Hines. He had 2 total touchdowns last time these two teams played. I do think the Titans get ahead early and want to control the clock with Derrick Henry, probably give him 25 carries plus again. I think Nyheim Hines, has more carries than Jonathan Taylor, which is surprising since they finally started to use Taylor like the back that he's supposed to be. But I think it's more of a Nyheim Hines game where he gets some catches out of the backfield. Michael Pittman Jr. has really come alive of late, being a rookie.
Really come alive.
Yeah, has a great rapport with Phillip Rivers, who's really been slinging it. Phillip Rivers threw the ball 39 times last time these two teams played. I think it's going to be a very similar game for Phillip Rivers, having to throw the ball 40 plus times, getting it to Nyheim Hines, getting it to Michael Pittman. We'll see.
They do use Hines a lot out of the backfield. I was impressed with the way they utilized him in the Green Bay game in specific over the weekend. I was like, wow, this kid's, he's like 5'2", but he's always open, gets the ball and goes straight upfield with as soon as he gets the ball. He's a slashing kind of guy that I got to tell you, the Colts have done a great job putting together a really good team. I'm super excited to watch this game on Sunday. There's another game I'm getting excited for the weekend. Like I said, the Chiefs don't have an easy road of it coming up in their next few games, and they will be tested. So will the Buccaneers. Now, can you imagine the Buccaneers, who just a few weeks ago were on the top of a lot of people's list of this is the best team in football. This is the team. Everyone's talking about this team, best team in football, just added Antonio Brown. And if they lose to the Chiefs this weekend, they go 7-5. And it starts to become tough to not only see them as the best team in football, but to see them even as a playoff team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in danger of not making the playoffs. So when we talk about teams that are already in playoff mode, with the quote unquote best team in football coming into your stadium with the guns blaring out of the freaking pirate ship over in the corner,
cannons.
This is make it or break it football. This is Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. This is the best weapons in football against maybe the second best weapons in football.
Sure.
What do you see for this game?
I mean, like you said, I think it's gonna come down to Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. Now, Tom Brady has been a bit of a sore loser lately. Remember, he didn't shake Jared Goff's hand after their Monday night loss.
That's so catty. That's such a catty way to start. You're like, oh, this is what. Let me tell you what's going to happen here. By the way, Tom Brady's kind of a wuss. Like, come on. Who cares if he shakes somebody's hand? I'm not a huge Tom Brady fan. Obviously, I'm not a huge New England fan. But you know what? I want my quarterback to walk off and go, give the thumb in the nose. Screw you, buddy. You don't get a handshake. Next time I'm going to beat you by 10. That's what I want my quarterback to do. This whole handshake and exchange jerseys. When I see him exchange jerseys, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what? You're supposed to hate each other.
That's a mutual respect. That's not how the game works anymore, John. I mean, maybe back in the 50s or whenever you grew up, it was hard.
Oh my God! Come on!
I'm just saying, mutual respect, and this is Tom Brady.
Can you imagine James Harrison and Ray Lewis exchanging jerseys after the game?
Ray Lewis, though, had an absolute respect for Tom Brady, for Peyton Manning, for guys that he went after, and I guarantee that he would at least shake their hands, win or loss, because Ray Lewis was a competitor. He wasn't a sore loser like Tom Brady, who when Tom Brady and the Buccaneers destroy the Chargers, Tom Brady can, buddy up with Justin Herbert and talk with him for 2 minutes about, if you keep working hard, you'll end up like me, Justin. Keep your head up. But Tom Brady gets outplayed by Jared Goff. It's got to be embarrassing for Tom Brady. Tom Brady's to the tunnel. Like, be a man. He needs to be a man.
Oh God, this guy, he's crazy.
No.
I'm just yelling to anybody in the office that'll hear me right now.
You think he shakes Patrick Mahomes' hand, win or lose?
Yes, absolutely.
Damn right. Well, why? Because he respects Patrick Mahomes?
No, because I tell you what, you want to know the real answer to that? Let's put some money on it. Let's put some money on this bet. Do I think he's going to shake Patrick Mahomes' hand? No, I don't. I'll bet you $1 he doesn't shake Patrick Mahomes' hand. Would you like to bet me?
Yeah, let's shake on it.
Okay, let's shake on it right now. Good. Everybody saw that Michael and I just bet $1 on whether or not he'd shake Patrick Mahomes' hand. You can send me the money now because they're not allowed to shake each other's hands. It's part of the COVID protocol.
You know what I mean. I'm talking about an exchange.
No. You said shake hands, put your hand out. So you said shake hands. That's $1 you owe me.
They'll shake hands the same way we just did. Okay, it's a virtual. It's a
maybe he virtually shook. Maybe he virtually shook the other guy's hand too. What do we know?
He virtually.
What do we know? Either way, I'm thinking this is a high scoring game. I'm also thinking. I just want to say something before we go to the last game. I'm also thinking there's an opportunity here to test what I was talking about. About Patrick Mahomes not having that 4-man rush to deal with and not dealing with it. Tampa Bay comes at you that way. Tampa Bay comes at you on that cover 2, cover 3 shell, switching to a little bit of man here and there, but they really rotate some zone blitzes in there as well, usually sending 4 guys on the occasion, 5 guys, but a lot of times it's a 4-man rush. So, and Tampa Bay is very fast on defense. This is actually a very good matchup that I'd like to see. I'm less excited about seeing Tom Brady and the boys against the Kansas City defense as I am about seeing that that Tampa Bay defense, and to see if they can actually keep up with the Chiefs. That's pretty exciting to me. Now, there's one last game that we talked about over the weekend that we're both excited to watch, and I can't believe we're talking about a game that's got the Bears involved in it. But this is always one of those games. This is similar and not quite to the standard of the Pittsburgh Raven games. We have that knockdown slugfest, but these games are always somehow very good, even when the Bears are not very good. And this year, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Bears started out 4-0 and are now 5-5.
Yeah,
which means in their last 6 games, they're 1-5. So they're on a downward slide. I believe Nick Foles just got carried off the field last week. I'm not even sure he was hurt. I think he was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. He's just like, someone get me out of here. Well, they ran out. They're like, what's wrong? He's like, everything. Just take me off the field. It's like emotional breakdown. They carried him off. I'm not sure who's starting this week. Maybe the guy who makes the hot dogs in the stands. But they're going into to Green Bay, and it's do or die for the Bears. I mean, this is it. If they don't win this game, their season's pretty much over. Packers coming off a huge emotional loss. I don't know. I mean, what do you see here? Can the Packers possibly lose a second game in a row?
I don't think so. The Packers in Lambeau, Sunday night game, bright lights. No, I got Aaron Rodgers with this. I don't care if it was Nick Foles. It looks like it might be Mitchell Trubisky if he's healthy enough to play. In that case, I gotta go with the Packers. Yeah, Trubisky. I don't know if David Montgomery is going to be ready to play. I don't think he will. So, the Bears will have to rely on Anthony Miller and Allen Robinson on offense. I mean, sure, those guys are some good playmakers, especially Allen Robinson, but someone's got to get the ball to him. Nick Foles has not been impressive. We know how bad Mitchell Trubisky is. So while this will be probably a close game because it's a divisional matchup, and these two teams know each other very well, this is the first time that they play each other. They will play again in week 17. But this is a must-win for the Bears if they want to keep their playoff hopes and their hopes of winning the division alive. But we talked about Aaron Rodgers. We talked about how the Packers are my third favorite team, my third best team in the league right now. They did just come off a loss, in overtime against the Colts, a game that they should have won. We talked about the Marquez Valdez-Scantling fumble when Darius Leonard stripped it from him.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be pissed off. He is not going to look at MVS at all. And it's going to be all Davante Adams and Aaron Jones this week. Bears can't stop them.
My sources inside the Packers told me that Valdez-Scantling is this week. Aaron Rodgers has taken tape and taped entire footballs to his hands. He's literally walking around like Edward football hands.
Yeah.
And they're like, if you drop these, we're gonna flog you with like whips and chains and raw eggs. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna have a great game this week. If he's probably gonna also be carried off the field emotionally scarred. Okay.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, that's the Friday Night Lights thing. Where was it Tim McGraw? Have you seen the movie Tim McGraw? His son can't catch the ball, so he duct tapes the football to his hands. It's actually very sad. It's a very sad scene, but
that's a great scene.
That's a great job by Tim McGraw. Yeah, I was very impressed with him.
That's a great scene.
It is.
I love how you were like all excited about the scene, then you caught yourself and you're like, hang on, let's be PC here. That's a terrible scene. I can't believe that happened.
It's an emotional scene. It's supposed to evoke that kind of a trauma that the kid must have faced when his dad's doing that for him. So,
well, it's also supposed to show you how people are in that town.
Oh
Like
yeah,
how diehard
Yeah.
people are and how serious the fathers take it. And it's supposed to like really do that whole connection for you. Love that movie. Actually love that TV show too. A lot of people didn't like the show. I loved it.
It's great.
I thought it was really good actually. My name is John Todora. This is Michael Schusler. This has been the What's on Sports podcast. For those of you that listened this long, and there's a few of you out there, believe it or not, listening live, you can catch us 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on YouTube and on Facebook. Also, our podcasts are available all over the place, including iTunes and all of your favorite podcast places. We also have a special announcement, something we should have said earlier. Michael's going on his own finally. That's right. He's breaking out. He's going to do his own thing. He's actually doing it with What's on Sports, of course, but he's breaking out with his own podcast. It'll be fantasy-based along with lots of other really cool sports news. He'll be doing fantasy football, fantasy basketball, and he cannot wait for fantasy baseball. All the information he'll be giving out will be free. Michael, what's the name of your podcast?
The name of the podcast is called Fantasy Fallout.
Fantasy Fallout, and it's going to be available on all of our favorite podcast networks. You guys will be able to listen to the show. You'll be able to watch it right here, just like you watch this one. If you happen to watch it, you'll be able to download it on all of your favorite podcast places. It'll be twice a week. It'll be coming at you Tuesdays and Thursdays. It'll be starring Michael and a cast of favorites that'll also be on the show along with him. I do want to remind you guys, we have one sponsor. It's a pretty cool one. It's called Sports Trading Systems. Go over to sportstradingsystems.com today and learn how to trade sports just like you trade stocks. I'd like to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Michael, you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, just thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate you. We wouldn't be here without you. Happy Thanksgiving to you, John, and to your family. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there listening. Let's try it. Like I said, it's going to be different this year. It's 2020 Thanksgiving, but just remember, what we're thankful for and why we celebrate this holiday, and just reach out to those that you would normally spend the holiday with that you might not be able to see this year. Reach out, give them a call, send them a text, tell them you love them, that you miss them, and you're thankful for them. And we'll see them soon.
He's the human greeting card, folks. That's right. Thanks for listening to the What's on Sports podcast. We're out of here.